with...
Hi guys, I'm Diz Geek in Pink. I am with the Disney Confidential channel.
And today we're going to be talking about some secrets, some lies, and just overall mysterious topics that Disney and the Disney Company and Walt Disney himself have even told you guys. So, where do you want to start off? You want to start off right with a...
This is your thing.
So let's start off. Yeah, okay. So we were talking... I told him to stop talking about it because I wanted to present it to you guys, but we were talking a little bit about Disney's lie. It all started with a mouse. And what did you tell me?
Well, I mean, we started talking about, everybody knows about Oswald, which is great. Oswald, Oswald's the original Mickey, and that's pretty common consensus, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, definitely.
Did you know it didn't start with Oswald?
I mean, I did when I was talking to you, but they probably didn't.
Most people don't. In fact, actually, it started...
I didn't know. I was surprised when he first told me.
So everybody thinks, okay, it started in 1928 with Mickey Mouse. And then we found out about Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which Oswald didn't even come in until like 1927. But with that being said, it actually started with a little girl named Alice, who inspired Alice in Wonderland.
Makes sense.
Back in the summer...
Well, not really.
Okay.
I'm just making reactions.
So... basically, in 1923, Walt arrived in California, and he had an idea. He had created a pilot called Alice's Wonderland, which he was trying to basically get a distributor for, because he really wasn't major or anything like that. He just had an idea. Man with a dream, as we say. And so while he was out there, he finally got a distributor, surprisingly a New York distributor, that picked up Alice's Wonderland, which later became known as the Alice Comedies. That's actually where he got his start. Alice. Alice inspired and funded, through their productions, the ability to create Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, to get into animations. But a fun fact about Alice's comedies is that it actually started the whole craze for animation in general. Because Alice's comedies was an actual live-action girl. She was real life, but she lived in a animated world. Hence, Alice in Wonderland. While this actually preceded Alice in Wonderland, it inspired it. It was the first time it had ever been created where a live-action performer was in a cartoon world.
Now, was this through the Disney Company?
No.
So how does this tie in with
So,
Disney?
That's it. Disney actually just created this idea. He sold it, they distributed it, and then it was kind of the beginning of the Disney empire, because in order to be able to produce the Alice comedies, Roy O. Disney and Walt Disney, Walt and his brother Roy, created a company called Disney Brothers Cartoon Studios to produce the Alice comedies. Not too much later, it didn't last very long, Roy actually stepped in and was like, hey, I think we should change the name. Is this really your thing? So they ended up agreeing on Walt Disney Studios. That didn't happen until about October 1923. So Walt Disney Studios already had started before Oswald was even a thing.
Okay.
So in 1927, Walt decided that it was time to end the Alice comedies. This was really where he figured out that he wanted to get into full animation. He didn't want to do this live-action girl in an animated world because there wasn't a whole lot to do with them. And it was completely silent films at this point. So he decided that he was going to create a character, but it wasn't actually Walt Disney that created the character himself. One of the things that's actually really interesting is that he created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit with a team. And Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was going to star in his new series. And Oswald actually starred in about 26 shows, which were shorts that were put in between like newsreels and actual real-life action films in order just to keep the kids entertained while the parents were ready to watch their movies and their newsreels. So he starred in 26 shorts, which is actually pretty awesome considering that all 26 shorts of those were done in a single year. And hand animation, let me tell you, hand animation takes a lot of work. There is a book
There's a lot of cells that go into it. By the way, I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Keep your thought. If you guys have any questions, the reason why we're doing this live is because we want to make it as interactive as possible for you. Yes, I'm going to be asking a lot of my own questions, but I want you guys to, I saw a lot of you guys say hi, by the way, as you're in there. Hi.
Sorry, I get to talking,
As you're in there, go ahead and give this a like for us. But I want you guys to just spit out questions as soon as they come to your head, and I will keep them in mind.
What's up, guys? I'm Diz Geek in Pink. I'm with the new to launch later this month Disney Confidential channel.
He has a lot of insights on a lot of things and a lot of backstories, and I really encourage you to keep that in mind. And we're going to be doing this podcast once a week, and we've decided on the Grim Grinning Gossip podcast, and we're going to be doing this weekly. So as soon as his channel comes out, I'll link it in the description below. But again, the main reason for this being live is not just for us to sit here and banter with each other. We could have recorded this, but I want to incorporate you guys real time. Did you keep in mind what you were talking about?
Yes, I did. And I do want to throw out there that I do not represent the Disney company at all. However, I have a lot of connections within the Disney company, including Disney Archives, as well as the Imagineers, Disney historians. And that's where I get all of my information from. I'm in the process of writing 3 different books that go through the entire history of Disney. Starting from the Florida Project, which was Walt Disney World. Well, actually, it starts in Disneyland with this whole story that we're talking about, the backstory of how Disney got created, Walt Disney the Man, going into the Florida Project, and then into the international parks is the third book, including Shanghai. So, of course, it takes a couple years to get approval for all that because they have to fact check everything. But I am in the process of writing those, so I do have a lot of background in this history, and I fact check everything that I talk about, which is big. Yes.
I wasn't
to make sure that I don't give the wrong years.
I wasn't supposed to show you this, but we do not want to mislead you guys.
No, to make sure I don't give any wrong years or incorrect data, I always make sure that I have some notes set aside just to make sure that I'm providing accurate information.
And if you do think of anything that's incorrect, you can comment on it and we'll acknowledge it.
Absolutely. I'm totally open to any kind of suggestions or
We're not close-minded.
anything that you've heard, because there are a lot of rumors out there that are true. Some of them are not true.
And if you've heard that, we could also debunk the untrue ones too.
Yeah, I am totally big on myth busting, let me tell you. And there are a lot of... So back to what we were talking about. So anyway, so we're in 1927. Walt's decided that he's going to turn into going from the Alice comedies, which starred a live-action girl, as well as... I'm going to leave it to you to read, because that distracts.
I got you. Don't even look at the comments, and I'll
Cool.
read them if they're...
Yeah, you just
I got you.
talk for them for me. He goes from wanting to do the live-action girl in the animated world to full animation, creating Oswald, who starred in 26 shorts that year. Now, Walt decided that he wanted to actually continue this because Oswald became so popular. So Walt went to his distributor. I'll tell you who it was in just a minute. He went to his distributor, and they said... to ask for additional funding for a second year of Oswald shorts, and the distributor said no. They did not want to increase his funding. They didn't even want to keep it the same. They actually decided they were going to find a way to do it cheaper. So Walt was not okay with this, and
we always
he was
know when we
like,
go cheaper.
this is kind of where that story comes in about Oswald and all that fun stuff. And I hate to break the myths about Oswald and how Mickey was created, but we will be doing that in just a minute. So he's unfortunately upset. He's like, all right, I'm going to take Oswald because he's my character. I created them. And they said no. He learned, unfortunately, that Oswald actually has copyrights to be part of and owned by this distribution company. So Walt says, okay, well, I'll take the animators. And unfortunately, the animators were in contract with this distribution company. So Walt's pretty defeated, right? We all heard that story. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that the distributor that Walt signed on with to create Alice comedies, as well as the Oswald shorts, was none other than, at the time, known as Universal Productions. Yes, that's right. Universal Studios owned the rights to Oswald, as well as the Alice comedies. Now, without Universal Studios, Walt would never have gotten his start. They gave him his lucky break.
It's really common information, and I do want to point that out there, but I do encourage you guys to keep watching. If you already know that it was owned by Universal, there's a lot more that is into this than just, oh, Universal took it, oh, he stole it, blah, blah, blah.
It has become more commonplace knowledge because of the contracts with Universal going to give, Oswald to Walt Disney.
But there's a lot more that is into that, and a lot more details that have been just, nobody really acknowledges it, and we're here to do just that.
Right. So let's talk about how Walt created Mickey Mouse. He did not solely create Mickey Mouse. In fact, he created it with his chief animator, Ub Iwerks. It was not on a train. Everybody says it was on his train ride back. He was actually in California still. They had a California location for the Walt Disney Studios
Right
out
in
there.
One Man's Dream, the movie in there, straight up tells you it was created on a train.
Yep.
Wasn't it his daughter in that film, that short film, that says?
You know, there are a lot of errors in that.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest. Here's the thing.
It's more
I
interesting
like
to
to
think that.
share that fun story, even if it's not 100% accurate, because Disney's all about stories and storytelling, and that is a great story. It's a little more enticing to think that Walt Disney created it by himself, but unfortunately the reality is that he didn't. He actually created Mickey Mouse with Oob Iwerks. Now the story does go back on track when he brings the new mouse character to his wife, presented to her as Mortimer Mouse.
Mortimer Mouse.
Which, once again, everybody knows. Mortimer Mouse plays into a story that we'll talk about on our second topic of this whole podcast here. But, of course, Lily says, no, Mortimer's too adult of a name. It's too serious. You got a fun character. So why not Mickey? Mickey Mouse. I think that's a cool name. And they agreed. So Mickey Mouse actually starred in 2 silent animations prior to Steamboat Willie. However, they all say that he debuted in Steamboat Willie. They had created the 2 silent animations, but at the time, sound was becoming a thing, and silent films were going out the door. So
Mark is acknowledging how deep we're getting into all this.
Yeah.
He's really appreciating it.
So even though they created 2 animated shorts, they never aired. And still to this day, nobody has ever really found these lost shorts. But we do know that they existed. They found like some of the original concept animations for it, but they have some documentation in Walt's journal, but they have no actual filming because they never went to actual production. At that point, fortunately for us, we ended up with Steamboat Willie. Now here's where it gets interesting, because everybody's like, oh, Steamboat Willie, that's great, we got a lot of fun characters. In fact, it was one of the first times that Disney created a villain. Now, yes, this is really cool.
Right?
Now, mind you, Disney's still not a household name. Mickey Mouse, still not a household name. He is just getting his start. But you're right.
We got Peg-Leg Pete.
Peg-Leg Pete. Mickey Mouse and Peg-Leg Pete. Now, Peg-Leg Pete was the villain of the Mickey Mouse short.
Which is where we first saw him. Like, ever.
So we think. Believe it or not, Universal Studios continued to produce Oswald films, short films, without Walt Disney. They went to do it for another year. Where it failed was when they actually had used Walt Disney's idea for Peg-Leg Pete. And in fact, yeah. Peg-Leg Pete actually had his first appearance in an Oswald short, not a Mickey Mouse short. Now, while Peg-Leg Pete is now licensed to Mickey, it was originally an Oswald short.
Talking about Clarabelle Cow, too. Showing up in the park and everything.
Oh, yeah. So Clarabelle Cow, she has a lot of history behind her. She's definitely one of our long-lost friends, but we've started becoming more in tune with the origins of Disney. So Clarabelle Cow has been making more appearances. We're hoping that with Clarabelle Cow, we'll start seeing more of like Horace Horsecollar and Clara Cluck, which are 3 of the characters that do, from time to time, especially during the holidays, make appearances. Clarabelle Cow and Horace Horsecollar currently make appearances at Magic Kingdom during the Hoedown in Frontierland.
Don't they also make it in like the parades and stuff?
During the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah, during the holiday parades, you have actually all 3 of them. Oh, I lost track here.
We were talking about how Oswald had Peg-Leg Pete.
Oh,
like
yes.
How those like all coincided.
Right. So,
and that Disney wasn't a household name yet. Are we back on track?
Yeah, we're back on track. So in November 18th, 1928, in the Colony Theater in New York, Steamboat Willie premiered with fully synchronized sound, which had never been done. That was pretty unique, which Disney is known for being an innovative man, and he wanted to be the first to do everything. It also starred, once again, Peg-Leg Pete as the antagonist or the villain. Now, of course, there's no proof of this, but we're pretty sure that, well, at least I feel this way, that it was probably a jab at Universal Studios for trying to keep Oswald and not letting him take it, considering that he had created Peg-Leg Pete specifically for Oswald. And using him in his first appearance in an animated short with Mickey Mouse is pretty big. So this is where people would end the story of how Disney got his start. But once again, like I said, to be honest, it really isn't, because Mickey and Disney, they really weren't household names yet. People were really skeptical. It was just one short, and while it made waves,
it was cool, but people were like, okay, how much money is it going to cost? Is this really going to be a thing? Is this going to go anywhere?
Right.
It's amazing, but how are you going to make this a thing that you can continuously produce content over and over and over again? It was too good to be true.
Which is accurate. You know, animations were never designed to be something.
How long did it take for them to just make Steamboat Willie?
It was about 8 months to a year. And Steamboat Willie was you know, like a 6-minute short.
And are we really going to sit around 8 months to a year to watch a 5-minute cartoon?
Accurate. I'm not even going to say you're not. That's 100% accurate. However, this is where we get into that second topic that we were talking about, which is kind of cool, and it answers a very age-old question.
Isn't it sort of ironic that now Disney has purchased Marvel and Fox? Basically, he's trying to talk about how Universal and everything was trying to keep him down.
You know, I can definitely touch on that. I believe that we're probably going to do a podcast interview about that a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, we're probably going to do
because
like
that's a pretty lengthy story. But ultimately, in the end of the game, when Disney kind of got the upper hand with Universal Studios, as Universal Studios was starting to kind of decline in its popularity, they made a trade and was able to get Oswald back, and that kind of squanched all of the...
And they kind of go inside, too.
Yeah, that kind of squanched all the
Universal,
negative interactions
Marvel.
between them, because really the only thing that held them back was Oswald. And, of course, you know, Walt Disney, unfortunately, has passed away at this point, and... You know, it was really kind of a personal feud for Walt Disney the man versus Disney the company. Yeah. So, I mean, it's all kind of, you know, they buried the hatchet, basically. And without Universal Studios brings a lot of people here, and Walt Disney is a sidetrack for that.
That's another
as well as Walt
podcast that we're gonna be
Disney
touching
being,
on.
you know, in addition to bringing people to Universal Studios, since you're so close here in Florida. So it really, that's, those two parks alone being so close together here, really make this an international destination, and they play on that now.
So back to where it all started. What are you trying to get at with where it all started? Are you saying that Peg Leg Pete started everything, or Alice, you said, started everything, but that's kind of all over the place. Who really came first?
So Alice came first, which is great.
The chicken or the egg?
She's the one, yeah, she's the one that laid the egg. Alice came first. However, the real start for Disney and actually becoming a full-on production studio, inspiring films like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, actually we haven't even gotten to the character that's inspired that started it all, because at this point they still don't have any funding, and Mickey Mouse is not bringing in the crowds that they had hoped.
So was Alice the one who inspired Snow White?
Alice was Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
So
Well,
let
yeah.
me get you a little bit back on track.
Okay.
Let's look at this real quick. The age-old question, and I'm going to kind of sidetrack here because it ties all in. I promise you. You'll find out at the end where this really gets started.
One of the questions that I have, because we keep on talking about all these characters, and we haven't really finished where we started, but I do have a question of my own.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we're talking about these characters, we're talking about Minnie, Peg Leg Pete. Well, once we go a little further, we get like Goofy, we get Pluto, we get Daisy. But one thing that I want to know is that is always like a question that like everybody has. Like, it's a very popular question. Why can Goofy, them both being a dog, why can Goofy talk, wear clothes, and be treated like a human when Pluto's basically, I don't know, discriminated and looked down upon with the rest of the anthropomorphic animal community?
So, Disney's world of animation. That's what I was going to get at. So I'm glad that you kind of beat me to the punch. It is a really age-old question. Goofy versus Pluto. What's the difference? Why can Goofy talk? Why is Goofy more human-like and Pluto not? And a lot of that actually ties into what we're talking about too, because really, Goofy and Pluto were kind of the start of the Disney company. They are the ones that funded everything. What makes it
I thought
interesting...
you meant like the very start. Never mind.
No, you're good.
It's where we got everything started taking off and booming.
Exactly. So let's start, to answer your question, let's start with the Pluto story, because that's really where it starts. Because Pluto actually came before Goofy. There was a short that came out in 1930 called The Chain Gang. If you haven't seen it, I recommend looking it up, because it's where Pluto makes his first appearance in double. That's right, in
Double.
Double. Yep, there's
What do
two
you mean?
Plutos. Originally named Rover, not Pluto. There were two of them. So the Chain Gang, to give you a little kind of plot synopsis here of what the Chain Gang's about, it's really kind of important. The Chain Gang is all about Mickey being in jail. Pegleg Pete is the jail guard. And
Of course.
Mickey breaks
he
out. So that's a good question. It actually has to do with Walt's whole idea of the world of animals being anthropomorphic. People related to animals better in cartoons. Kids related to animals better. It was more fun. So he actually created anthropomorphic characters, which means human-like characteristics in a non-human character.
And that answer was answered to Mark's question, which he said, where did Walt even come up with Mickey Mouse speaking in the first place?
Oh, yeah, sorry. With that being said, though, that is the world that Walt lived in. That is what he wanted all of his characters to be like. All of his characters, well, I mean, on film.
Most successful people are.
This is accurate. So Walt wanted his characters to all be relatable with human experiences. And so we're going into Pluto, who really is the first time any kind of character, because there were all kinds of characters, side characters, you know, in this world. Different people that were also in the jail, that were animals, pigs, cows, you know, goats. There were all kinds. But the first time a non-anthropomorphic character was ever created was specifically because Mickey broke out of jail. And Pegleg Pete had to hunt him down. Of course, what's the best way to hunt somebody down? Use a bloodhound. And that's where Pluto comes in. So
I think I've seen this before.
Yeah, there's actually two parts of this. The reason why he created it with the bloodhound was really kind of like a nod to his time back in Marceline, Missouri.
Yes, Pluto came before Goofy.
Yes, Pluto came before Goofy. Thank you. It actually was kind of a nod and homage to his home life in Marceline, Missouri, where he spent most of his childhood. Back then, he had a farm, and his favorite thing to do was to watch the dogs, and they had bloodhounds. And they would go on hunts and get like ducks and stuff like that. And so it was kind of a nod. Not thinking anything of it, not intending the character to be a popular character as he is today. He was just a side character and a simple nod to his home life. Pluto got such an amazing response because he was treated like a pet. So Disney, once again, not a household name, not real popular, decides, okay, well, you know, I feel like I struck gold here. I think maybe we should see more of this character.
So many people related.
He really was an accidental gold mine. But let's remember, Pluto was purposely brought in as Rover at the time to specifically hunt down Mickey. He was kind of like pro-antagonist. He was part of the bad guy team.
So how did he become his pet?
So that's kind of where it comes in, because Pluto's next appearance, still as Rover, wouldn't come in until about 1935. In 1930, I believe it was 1935. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's a short called The Picnic. And The Picnic, actually, once again, he's still named Rover, but this time he comes in as a proper pet. So whose pet would he be? Mickey's, right?
Yeah.
No, even though he's starring in a short with Mickey, he actually belongs to Minnie Mouse. And still to this day, is best friends with Mickey, but not actually Mickey's pet. He's Minnie Mouse's pet.
Wait. Trying to process that.
Get that thought out, Brandon.
I'm just trying to process that. Minnie Mouse's pet. But then... So does he
So let me kind of get it... It's kind of like a side story here.
Okay.
Just because I know that kind of throws, it's like a curveball. Minnie's pet. There's actually a pretty solid theory. There's no hard evidence of how Minnie got Pluto, because obviously it was really just Disney trying to gain popularity using the accidental gold mine of Pluto.
Yeah. And he just wanted to throw them in there somehow.
But this is where Mortimer Mouse comes in. You see, later on, there would be...
Which, if you didn't know, that's where... So, you know how we talked about how Mickey was supposed to be Mortimer, and then Lily, his wife, not Mickey's wife, Walt's wife, wanted it to be a little... She thought that Mortimer was just too hard for a happy, jolly mouse like that. So they named him Mickey. But to keep Mortimer, Walt decided, let's make him an antagonist, and instead of being a... I mean, it's Mortimer. He's a rat.
I mean, he does have rat-like features. He's still considered a mouse, but he has rat-like features.
But that's what...
Specifically because he's a villainous character.
That's what they did.
To differentiate him from Mickey and Minnie, who are positive roles, they created, you know, Mortimer Mouse.
Yeah.
So, Mortimer Mouse is the antagonist. In 1936 is where he makes his appearance in a short called Mickey's Rival. And in that short, Mortimer Mouse actually recognizes Minnie. He's driving really fast in his sports car, and he passes by Minnie Mouse, and he's like, stop! Backs up. Actually ends up, I think he backs into a tree in the short, and meets Minnie, goes and talks to her. Here's what's interesting, because at this point they really don't have a grasp on Mickey and Minnie's relationship. They're kind of dating, but they're kind of not. We don't really know what's going on. I still don't know what's going on today, you know? And Mortimer decides to talk to Minnie. And Minnie recognizes him, calls him by name, and then introduces Mortimer to Mickey Mouse, who she is on a date with, mind you, as a dream guy. In fact, yeah, right? That was my reaction too. In fact, her exact words when she introduced him, Mickey, I'd like to introduce you to a perfect dream. And she actually calls him the perfect dream. So it's kind of like a nod to the fact that they probably had a relationship in the past. Mortimer is still in love with Minnie. And the idea is that's kind of the theory that's kind of been running, is that Mortimer actually was the first owner of Pluto. He got Pluto from Pegleg Pete, because Pluto was at the time Rover, hunting down Mickey. And he wanted something to drive a wedge between Minnie and Mickey. So when he gives Minnie during their dating, while they're having this little date thing that came before Mickey, when Minnie started kind of leaning towards Mickey's side of things, Mortimer gives Minnie Rover, now known as Pluto, in order to kind of scare Mickey off. Because Mickey started in jail.
What a jerk.
Right.
What a jerk.
However, here's the thing. It backfired. Because Pluto ended up loving Mickey and ended up pushing Minnie and Mickey closer together.
Was he still, this is just a side question, was he still Rover or
yes.
Pluto now?
Pluto wouldn't get his name until later. Pluto would actually be renamed several times. He had Pal, Homer, all very pet-like names.
Homer?
Yeah. So Mickey, if you haven't noticed, Mortimer Mouse, Pegleg Pete, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, all of them have alliteration in their name, and that's something that he's stuck with. We talked about Horace Horsecollar, Clarabelle Cow, Clara Cluck. They all have alliteration.
Pluto Puppy.
Pluto the Pup is what they ended up going. And you asked about Homer. Homer the Hound was the original idea for his name. Accurate.
Have you been locked away on a deserted island with nothing but Disney books?
Probably. I grew up on Disney, and Disney stories have fascinated me. I have worked in several aspects with the Disney company, so the more I worked with the company, the more I worked with it, I kind of delved into the history and found it absolutely fascinating. Which is funny because I have no interest in history at all except for Disney history.
Where did I find this guy? I was just filming something for Star Wars, and he happened to be taking pictures.
It was actually your episode, your YouTube video about you getting arrested.
Yes, I wasn't supposed to get arrested, and he worked some things out. We'll just leave it at that.
I hope make that possible.
Okay, so Pluto the Pup.
But interesting, real quick, because we're talking about how he got named. Pluto, the name Pluto is so random, right?
Yeah.
It actually came from the fact that popularity was growing on the new discovery of the planet Pluto.
Which isn't even a planet anymore.
Being the genius that Walt Disney the man was, marketing on the popularity of the name Pluto, just like today, how we would Google things, he decided to use the name Pluto. It was such a popular name, it was in all the news, so now this character, Pluto the Pup, exists, and it's like, dude, like Pluto,
so
that's a cool name.
So kind of how like you would like monetize, like not monetize, but do like YouTube videos. Things are popular, you cash in on that. Find a way to incorporate something popular.
Absolutely, and
which is free advice for you guys.
So that's exactly what he did. Now let's talk about Goofy. Now remember, Pluto got his debut in a 1930 short in The Chain Gang.
Yes.
Goofy doesn't actually make his first appearance until 1932. In fact, May 25th, 1932. So in the spring of 1932, Goofy made his debut in a Mickey short called Mickey's Review. In that, there was a couple of different things that are going on, and in one of the scenes, there is kind of like almost like a gladiator-style arena. It's an outdoor amphitheater that Mickey is part of, and they're watching his show, and there's an audience, and the camera keeps cutting to specific audience members. In this case, specifically a character, Goofy.
Okay.
This is where Goofy makes his first appearance. Now, Goofy was designed to be a character in Walt's world, in Mickey's world, I guess I should say. He was an anthropomorphic character. He was planned, whereas Pluto was not. Pluto was totally accidental, totally unintentional.
And you couldn't just go after so many years of having Pluto. You can't just be like, oh, he's gonna stand up and talk now.
Exactly. Since Pluto got his start accidentally as a pet or as a dog, like a non-anthropomorphic character, he had to stay that way. Now they did give him.
Sense.
Fun fact: they did give him some actual human characteristics. They tried it; it failed.
Like with the laughing and stuff.
Yeah. So.
Or when he goes, yeah.
But we'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
Let's get back to Goofy real quick. So Goofy makes his debut in this film, this short, Mickey's Review. He actually makes his debut as a completely different name. Remember, Walt Disney liked alliteration. He was actually known as Dippy Dog.
Yep.
Dippy Dog, D-A-W-G, which is funny because D-A-W-G didn't become popular as a slang term until like the
when
80s.
Randy Jackson said it.
80s and early 90s.
Randy Jackson made dog popular.
I feel like that Walt Disney was the man when it comes to slang because he started it in 1932 with Dippy Dog. Anyways, he had been intended to become an actual character in Mickey's world.
Yeah.
So after his character
Which he's one of the most beloved characters, so that was a great intention. Which
is true. But did you know that he actually failed? They intended him to be popular, but then he failed. He had zero popularity. So the character that had no intention of being popular struck gold, and the dog character that was supposed to be popular failed. In fact, he didn't actually come again until later in 1932 when he was starting a short called The Whoopee Party. This time, instead of being Dippy Dog from the early 1932, where he was actually like an older guy, he had a white beard. Yeah. He didn't have his hat or his classic clothing yet. He was just an older guy with a white beard, and but he did have his classic Hilk laugh.
Just the way that you did that. It's so nonchalant. Hey, Hilk.
So in an attempt to recreate his popularity, to build his popularity, they changed him. They gave him a new look, and they redesigned him as a younger version of himself. Still Dippy Dog, but he starred in the Whoopee Party. Still not gaining the desired popularity at all.
So why did he keep on trying so hard?
Because he was planned to be a character. They had ideas for him that they wanted him to be part of this world with Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, Pluto.
It wasn't just like, here's a character, love him. It was, we have a lot to do with this character, and you need to love him.
We have specific plans for this character, and if you don't love him, we can't make it work. That's really what it boiled down to. Once again, Disney's still not really a household name, but he's gaining popularity. Goofy is really the star here, because in 1935, they actually created another one in 1934 where he failed again. This time he had the name Goofy, and that was in Orphan's Benefit to better represent his personality. But in 1935, Goofy finally gained enough popularity to reach their goal of making him a main staple, and he did. He was in several Disney Mickey shorts, making his first appearance along with the greats Mickey and Donald in the short Mickey's Service Station. And it was fantastic because in that short you actually get to see what Donald originally looked like, and it is totally different. Donald was so silly.
Except for did his original look have anything to do with one of the original Donald Duck mascot costumes?
Well, of course, I can't
really
say
weird.
Costumes. You know, I'm all about integrity. There's no costumes, but Donald Duck has changed his look over the years quite a bit. And yes, original Donald looks like original Donald.
I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, so, but with that being said,
I didn't mean to do that for myself.
It wouldn't have been, even though Goofy gained his popularity in 1935, it wasn't until 1937 that he actually donned his attire. That iconic hat with the long sleeve shirt, the vest, and the pants.
Okay.
Now, here's a fun fact, though. In the early 1960s, Goofy went through another identity crisis when Disney decided to kind of dull him down because his character was so loud and it was kind of outshining all the other characters in his shorts. So they wanted to dull him down and make him a little bit more truly human, going through like serious human interactions, things that we would come across on a daily basis. They actually gave him a straight man role, which is a straight man, it's non-comical, as an office guy with Goofy. Yes, he had a series of cartoon shorts that he was an office guy. He worked in an office, dealt with day-to-day problems that the everyday man would deal with. It failed. In fact, by 1965, he lost so much popularity, they entirely cut him from all of the shorts. It wouldn't be until almost 20 years later, in 1983, when he would star as Jacob Marley in Christmas Carol, that he even gained popularity again. And
wow.
Yeah. So
That's
Goofy dropped off the face of the earth for almost 20 years.
That's a long time.
So, what's the difference between Goofy and Pluto?
Yeah. Well, let's get back to that. Why, like, Goofy has a family, Goofy... You just answered that.
Yeah, so what's the difference between Goofy and Pluto? Goofy was designed to be part of... In summary, Goofy was designed to be part of the main characters.
I'm just surprised that they would choose...
Pluto wasn't.
I was just surprised...
Pluto couldn't change.
I'm just surprised that they would choose another dog. Like, honestly. Like, if they already have Pluto as a dog, why not just make it a fact that dogs are just dogs in that universe?
Well, they did later on, much, much later, in the color cartoons, where Pluto actually got a girlfriend. But
wasn't that Minnie's dog? Well, now, it's so confusing. Wasn't that Minnie's dog though?
No.
But that little brown dog though, that is his girlfriend.
You're correct.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that's kind of fun about Pluto though is that he is currently, up until we gained more pet characters, still to this day, out of all the original Disney characters, Pluto is the only one who never experienced any changes. He started out as a bloodhound, he became a mutt, but still had the same appearances.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool. Like, he's the only character that never made any changes to his appearance at all. Like, he still looks very similar to what he looked like back then.
Which I hate the new. I'm just gonna leave it as that. I hate the new changes.
I will hold my comments to myself. So let's get back to the original point of all this, the lie that Disney told. Where did Disney get its start? Where was Disney ever able to fund his career? And it was not any of the previous things. It wasn't until Disney finally became a household name, until with the addition of Pluto. You know, that skyrocketed Mickey's popularity.
I was going to say something, but I feel like you're getting ready to say what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Did Pluto make the Disney company what the Disney company is today?
No.
Oh.
But Pluto did skyrocket the Disney popularity enough that it was able to, it enabled Walt the man to fund his first major project. In 1934, Disney estimated that the Snow White film that he wanted to create would cost about $250,000, which was a lot of money back then.
Yeah,
a lot of money. We're talking 1934.
No, but still, to put that much money into something that nobody understands.
Now, he had budgeted for about $250,000, which was great. They had made that money from all of the skyrocketing from Pluto, which, believe it or not, Pluto did really expand the audiences because kids love dogs, adults love dogs, adults related to the cartoon more because it created a family environment. Because, I mean, if you can't have a child, the next best thing is a pet, they say.
That's true.
So it kind of gave a parenting mentality, and then every kid wants a pet too. I mean, dogs were a thing, you know, still are. Kids want a pet dog. So it really expanded and took cartoons from being something just for kids to being something for everybody.
Keep talking.
And so they had gotten about $250,000 together to fund this film. Unfortunately,
Mark actually has a question. Like, that's very important. He says, but financially, Snow White would ultimately bring him to find the funds that would get the Disneyland park, start the Disneyland park.
Accurate. That is exactly what I was just about to say. It took, the budget for it was $250,000. Walt Disney actually had to mortgage his home in order to fund it because it ended up costing them $1.5 million to create Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And the thing about it, think about that. $250,000 back then was like millionaire money.
$250,000. Did you say was equal, or he needed to come up with more money?
He needed to come up with. He realized that he could not do it on a $250,000 budget. It ballooned over that year to $1.5 million.
Where does he get all this money?
He mortgaged his house.
Like, a nice house.
Yeah, well, he mortgaged his house. There were a lot of other factors. He ended up with sponsors and stuff like that. But he really couldn't have, like, the sponsors were private sponsors.
This man put his freaking house on the line for something that was not even guaranteed.
Yeah, basically. And, I mean, he put his studio on the line, too. He ended up actually mortgaging his studio property and everything. Like, he literally put everything into it. He believed in it that much. And here's the thing. There was no guarantee of success because everybody thought he would fail. In fact, they actually nicknamed the movie Disney's Follies because they really did not, they thought it was a crazy idea.
He threw away everything for something that could have flopped.
So, December 21st, 1936, with no guarantee of success, mind you, being that this had never been attempted before, Walt actually continued his project until that day he actually premiered it in Carthay Circle Theater, which was a pretty big deal because only major films were produced in Carthay Circle, which, if you have never been to the parks, or you have been and you've never really understood it, in Hollywood Studios on Sunset Boulevard, there is a Carthay Circle replica of a building, as well as in California, at Disney's California Adventure in Hollywoodland there, they have the Carthay Circle restaurant, in homage to the true start of the Disney company, which was the premiere of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Oh man, I wish we were filming over there now.
Now, the thing about it is that, once again, nobody believed. They had to give away free tickets to this movie because nobody really supported it. Nobody thought that it would actually do well. Sure enough, not only did it do well, it completely captivated the audience. You could hear a pin drop, they say, in that theater, the premiere movie.
Wow.
It didn't just captivate them, though. It moved them. People came out of the theater
made them feel
crying.
Things. Yeah.
It was such an emotional experience. Yes, but for a completely different reason. They just mentioned, didn't Fantasia almost make Walt lose it all? And that is true, but that's a completely different reason because he invested in a whole sound system and everything called Fantasound. There's a whole story behind that.
And a completely different podcast.
And that's definitely that's a story for a different day for sure. But that is accurate. There's a whole story behind that as well with the build and the fall of Fantasia. Now, going back to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, though, here's the cool part. You know, there's a lot of history.
It's a lot of history. Yes, the sound
I just dropped
system.
my phone.
Critics
I didn't want
were
to turn it
not. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of history with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
So, yeah, there's a lot of history between Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, but here's the thing. Not only did it get a standing ovation from the audience, but soon Walt would actually be presented with an Oscar for the Academy Awards. Presented to him by none other than our little dream girl, Shirley Temple. Now, a lot of people know this, but a lot of people don't realize just how big of a deal this was. Because not only was Walt Disney being honored for his ingenuity on the film, but the fact it was the first of its kind, and it was such a big deal. He overcame so many obstacles to create this film. Nobody believed it would exist. That he actually, not only did he get an Oscar, but he got 8 Oscars. 8 Oscars. Not 8 Oscars like, I got 8 Oscars for different things. No, I got 8 Oscars for being the best animated film in that category, which was the only one because it wasn't even a category until him.
Wasn't there like those little smaller miniature
That's it.
Oscars?
He is the only man in the history of the Academy Awards, in the history of Oscars being given, he is the only man that has ever gotten a custom Oscar award. The Academy Award that he won.
That is cool.
The Academy Award that he won was a full-size standard Oscar. With 7 miniatures representing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
That's cool.
They still, to this day, are housed in, I believe they're housed in the Disney Animation Studios out in California, Burbank.
It's shaking.
Stop hitting the table.
That's cool.
So, that's really where it all started. Because now that we got the true beginning with Snow White's success, Snow White's success did go on to fund so many more feature films, including Alice in Wonderland, which we mentioned earlier. Of course, Cinderella being one of the most iconic films. It allowed Disney to have his pick of investors because after overcoming such obstacles and people really telling him, this is a horrible idea, there's no way, people realized, wait, maybe he's onto something, and he's the first one to do it. He's the one that's got the plan. So he started picking up investors, and he had so many investors on board with him that he had to pick and choose who he was going to let invest with his company because there were just too many.
That's crazy. So, literally, lose it all with Oswald. Pick up everything. Fund everything yourself off of just a one man's dream. And then just like, that's insane. But because he believed so hard, and something that I've been preaching to you guys every so often if you stumble upon these videos, believe in yourself. Believe in what you do. Put every little thing into what you do. And it's a slim possibility, but it's a big possibility you could be the next Walt Disney.
Reality is
nobody believed in him.
The reality is that the only way to succeed in life is to fail. Yep. You have to hit rock bottom, and you have to overcome it. And that's really what Walt's taught me and taught a lot of people, because we just talked about how Walt had so many obstacles, including his almost complete failure with Fantasia. Once again, something that nobody believed in him with, and he invested almost everything into that film.
And then he almost lost everything. And again, for another different podcast, I'd like to talk about the start of the Disney Renaissance and what saved the Walt Disney Company. Because he almost lost it all, no matter how successful it was. He almost lost it. But a certain Disney movie in the Disney Renaissance saved everything, and that's why it's such a powerful movie.
And we will keep that to ourselves and air it on a future podcast. I don't know if it'll be the next one, but we'll talk about it for sure.
So I had a lot of fun. I hope that you guys too. Did you have a lot of fun?
I did. I love talking about Disney. Most times I don't shut up, which
is great.
Hopefully you guys love that, because that's what I do. And I don't know. I love sharing actual Disney knowledge and kind of taking some things and putting some myths to rest and whatnot.
Well, I'm really glad to be starting this podcast, and I'm really glad that you are on board, because you have not only a lot of information, but you also love to... What inspired me to start this with him is that, like he said, he likes to talk on and on and on about Disney, and what better place to do it than on a podcast where you could talk for hours if you wanted to. We're going to try and keep it to 45 minutes to an hour generally, but welcome to the Grim Grinning Gossip podcast.
And I'm going to put a shameless plug in here. I know my channel is about to start. I literally fly out for California to go to Disneyland at 2 a.m. So that's East Coast time.
He's here right now, and he's leaving to fly across the country.
I am flying across to LAX at 2 a.m. in the morning, and I'll be there at 10 o'clock to film my first episodes, where I'm going to talk about all the upcoming stuff. Because, yes, this was a lot of history, but just as well as I do, I have a lot of inside information. I've talked about, I'm going to help you, we're going to...
And this isn't just going to be history for
this podcast. No, absolutely not. There's going to be information about what's coming up in Disney. I've got insider information with, Galaxy's Edge, with Star Wars, Toy Story Land, the new Marvel section of the park that's coming, not just Guardians of the Galaxy, but the new Marvel section. There's so much more to talk about. I know.
You're getting so much in this.
Yes, but I want to make sure that you guys, since you're here, that you know that there's so much more coming, and we have so much more to talk about. And it's not just Disney history, because some people aren't interested in that. Check out Disney Confidential. It'll be launching January 24th?
I thought you said 28th.
I was going to do the 28th. Sometime between January 24th, 28th. The channel is already there, so if you subscribe, you'll get the notification for the very first video that launches. And
turn on your notifications.
Yes, turn on your notifications. Make sure you like the channel, because we will be talking about 20 reasons why you should be coming to Walt Disney World and Disney properties across the world, with all the new things that are coming, most of which are pretty still top secret. So a lot of this hasn't been released to the general public yet.
So go ahead and go over to his channel, which again is
Disney Confidential.
And subscribe and turn on those notifications, and I will put a link in the I can't edit this out while it's live. I'll put a link in the description, and I really, really, really want you to go check that out, because he's gonna be in a lot of more of my videos. I'm gonna be on his channel a lot, and you're gonna kind of get the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. So until next time, Brandon Ears, Disney Files. We'll see you next week.
Next week at Wednesday at, hopefully this time we can start it at 3 p.m. I'm sorry for the...
We had to get margaritas. That's really what... I'm not gonna lie. We had to get margaritas. It's busy here. It's crazy here. It's loud.
Make sure to subscribe. Bye, guys.